Welcome to Leadership DNA, a podcast for those who aspire to be a better leader. Alongside Arturo Gomez, I'm Rob Cressy. Today's topic, reestablishing personal leadership. Arturo, what does that mean?
Oh God, it's you know what, Rob? For me, it means it's just having control over one's emotions, over one's actions, really primarily. Having control over one's thoughts is something that really is a challenge. But I would say that it's more of actionable. The way that we evolve and the way that we develop. Really our actions, I'm going to continue to say it's an actionable thing, but so that's what it is.
And the reason we're bringing up this topic is the next series of episodes that we're going to be creating are all focused on looking forward towards 2021. And right now, there is such a big opportunity for each one of us as leaders to reestablish our personal leadership, because everything may not have been puppy dogs and rainbows in 2020. So sometimes you need an opportunity to redefine your due north as it stands with personal leadership. And for me, the word that really stands out to here is personal. What can you do as a leader to redefine your own leadership? And there's 5 things that I actually wrote down that I said, here's things that I believe are of extreme value to people as it relates to redefining your personal leadership. So, number 1, honesty with yourself. I think this is so important because as we head into a new year, you need to be honest with where you are, take inventory of yourself. And as a leader, this can be a challenge because when you're at the top, oftentimes there's no one to hold you accountable. But that's when you really need to check yourself and say, wait a second, is there a leak in my boat? Is there something that I'm not seeing? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, this goes back to, I think the beginning of our entire podcast was really driven around this concept. And so leadership begins with yourself. It ends with yourself in terms of the way that, if you are really truly going to be this power, this energy, this giver, this person that's actually providing direction, you have to have a very clear sense of who you are and be fundamentally grounded in that and be happy and be excited about it. And so, and I think that, it's obviously attached to this concept of personal love. And so you should be madly, deeply in love with who you are. And that would really enable you to start providing more for other people.
And this area of self-love is an area that I've really done a deep dive in the last 6 or 8 weeks. And one of the challenges with self-love can be, are we outcome-based? Do we only love ourselves if something happens? If I land that client, if I land that project, if everything in my life is puppy dogs and rainbows. But in actuality, we need to be very always on with self-love, but it's not an easy thing to do, certainly coming from a year where everybody didn't love themselves as much as they probably should.
Rob, it's going to be, again, some of the other things that we're going to talk about in some of the other subsequent podcasts is all fundamentally driven off this idea that you have this control over actions and over emotions. And those are the things that are going to give you the power to actually be able to move things forward.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's also beautiful at the same time. The next thing I have written down is bouncing back when times are tough, or grit. And you can go back and listen to our episode about grit. But if we're reestablishing our personal leadership for 2021, man, you have to assume what we experienced in 2020, that is going to happen again. So you need to fall in love with being someone who says, you know what? I know there are more difficult times on the horizon. I know one of the quotes that I really use as a due north is, prepare for what's difficult when it's easy. So let's say heading into 2021, things got a little bit easier. If that's the case, boom, use this as the opportunity to start building that house, start building that fortress, get you and your team ready for what you don't know might lie ahead.
That's right. I mean, in addition to these kind of these landmines and these things that are, these unknowns that we may encounter. I mean, the idea of being able having grit, the idea of having this control over your actions and emotions. This is such a timely conversation because everybody, for the most part, as we leave January 1st, every year we embark on this concept that it's a new year. There's new resolutions, there's new things, there's new opportunities, and if we don't have the strength, none of that stuff actually matters. None of it matters if we don't have the control and the ability to actually set ourselves off on a path. And it's not, we can't, unfortunately, we can, I'm sure there's others in our lives that we can count on. There's certainly people around me that I would say I can count on 100%. But if we can't count on ourselves, a lot of these things are going to be way more difficult than they should be, and they're not going to be, and some of them may not be achievable because you're the obstacle. So you need to get out of the way, get out of your own way, and learn to have a different appreciation of yourself and kind of a focus and a fundamental, be rooted in terms of your own self-control in your actions.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And I think back to an interview of someone did of me a few years ago, and they said, Rob, who's your biggest competitor? And the answer was simple: myself. When you see yourself as the only competitor to your success, boom, all of a sudden everything changes. So let's get to the next thing. And one thing I loved about Tim Grover's book, Relentless, is he gave a series of things to do, but he labeled all of them number one because they're all the most important. And I would say the same for this list, but this one right here, I put so much importance on. Look forward, not backwards. As we're reestablishing our personal leadership, you've got to be a leader who's looking forward, because so many people are still going to carry 2020 with them into 2021. They're looking backwards, not forwards. And this is a complete game changer, because I believe the majority of the world is going to continue to look backwards, even though all year the narrative has been, oh my God, 2020 is the worst year ever. Can't wait to get to 2021. But I'm sitting there waiting for January 2nd, and guess what's going to happen? Those same excuses and the negativity is going to be there. And to me, that's a mindset. And you've got to be a leader who's looking forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably one of the more challenging years, I think, to do that. I mean, there's so much carnage and emotional baggage that I think. I mean, I don't know that many people that are unscathed. I mean, there certainly are some people that have thrived in this environment, and other people that have had some tremendous challenges. But either way, I think the rule of thumb is bad year, good year. You need to move forward, and you have to have a progressive mind that is constantly challenging yourself to be that better version of yourself. And so I think that we all can reference back to instances or things that might have happened in our lives that have had tremendous impact. And I think it's, for me, it's more of, let's not dwell. Hold on. Sorry, it got a little rowdy over here. So that's what you get for doing a show with in your home, and you get your family running around. And so but I think for me, it's there is a little piece of the past that that sits with me. It's not something that I would say it's attached to like an emotional parachute where it's dragging me. On the contrary, it's there's certain things that I remember from the past that actually propel me. And so I think this year will be a challenge. I think everybody should be mentally prepared for that. And the challenge is that again, whether there's too many unknowns. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month. We don't know what's going to happen in the next quarter. I think we just need to be cognizant of that. We need to continue to move and progress forward in our own personal ambitions of what we want to accomplish for ourselves. and also apply that to any career and other outside relationships that we hope to evolve.
And number 5 for me, consistency. As we're reestablishing our personal leadership, we as leaders need to continue to show up day after day after day. You don't want to be a leader who just pops in here and there, because that's not actually leadership. What are your thoughts on consistency? Because this is such a challenge, so much so that we've done an entire episode on this.
The lack of consistency, Rob, is such a detriment to yourself and to the people that you hope to lead. And so you don't have. I've never ever seen somebody that people applaud or that they hold in high regard as a leader that is inconsistent. I mean, you can't be inconsistent if you want to move the needle forward. And so I think you also have to look at yourself. So don't treat yourself with less respect than you would treat other people. So and that's just it's a thing that we tend to do quite often. I mean, we don't give ourselves the attention, we don't give ourselves the love, and we don't give ourselves the consistency that we constantly are pushing ourselves to give other people. So the second and the time or the moment that you actually make a commitment to actually being consistent with yourself and with your actions is where you start beginning to grab a lot more a firmer hold on this idea and this concept of personal leadership.
And as I look back at how I ended this year, one of the books that I read was Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And there was one thing that stood out to me that was my biggest nugget. And it was actually from his mom. And he said, my mom was the quickest to forgive herself. And because of that, she lived a stress-free life. So as we talk about everything there, from self-love to consistency to grit to looking forward, man, imagine if you could forgive yourself quickly, because we are so often the one who holds us down, even in the name of a higher standard. And this is something certainly in my own journey that has been an ongoing challenge, where sometimes you create an obstacle for yourself because you think you need it there in order to get you to where you want to go. But once I read that passage about his mom, I was like, you know what? This year, and actually this month, I'm working on forgiveness. I want to forgive myself quickly so I can live in bliss.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a great I think it's a great philosophy. I think we have to be caring and gentle with the way that we approach ourselves, but I think there's also some accountability. There's some accountability. We can't it's not all hugs. I mean, there has to be a level of accountability. Again, one of the things, I mean, what we're the concept or the theme of this particular podcast is reestablishing personal leadership. So the personal and leadership, those two things require a certain amount of commitment, a certain amount of consistency, a certain amount of accountability. But I think the same thing that I would say about leading others is that if somebody makes a mistake, you need to be there to pick them up. And so if you make a mistake, or if you fail to achieve a specific goal that you had for that week or that day or that month, um, you can't dwell on it. You got to continue to move forward, and you got to just pick up where you left off and keep pushing.
So Arturo, in that instance, who picks you up?
I mean, I'm so fortunate that I'm surrounded by tremendous friends. I'm surrounded by tremendous family, and I think that I also have um, a mental um, strength that is fairly consistent in terms of it's fairly accessible and there when I need it. But I think that's a big thing too. I mean, because the care and the love from others is tremendous, but it only goes so far. I mean, it's a very, very critical part of having a healthy existence, in my opinion. But I think that you have to have enough caring and self-love to be able to actually progress and give yourself a fighting shot.
I love it. So now time for the action item or the takeaway. Arturo, what's your action item or takeaway?
I mean, the action item, I think it just is really going to be, writing things down. I think that the previous couple podcasts that we had and some of the ones that we already have planned for in the next subsequent podcast. I think a lot of it has to do with writing plans down, establishing accountability, establishing goals, creating an outline for purpose. So for me, it's going to be writing down. This is part of your plan, part of your 2021 personal and professional goals, and also being able to diagram some type of a plan that allows you to have that consistency and the accountability there for personal growth.
And on my end, I've got an action item, and I want you to think about one thing that maybe you used to do that you let slip and you're not doing anymore. We're talking about reestablishing personal leadership. What is one habit or routine or something that you need to reestablish that in 2021 will serve you better? And bonus points for letting Arturo and I know what that is, because we would love to support you in that. Arturo, where can everybody connect with you?
Best place is going to be Arturo Gomez LinkedIn.
And on my end, you can hit me up on all social media platforms at Rob Cressy, especially on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And if you really enjoyed this episode, then I would love to jam with you. I love getting down with the other leaders. You can hit me up at robcressy.com.